it lasted for about 7 minutes.
Dirty and bloody, Renato finally reached Lupino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Renato recognized the cards. It was Lupino's favorite deck. Oh, I thought you were in danger. I am. The ravens are coming. Oh, we capture Zenobia. We find out what she knows. And that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Capture the Emperor's greatest general, who also happened to be a deadly sorcerer and owed his only daughter? That would be worth it. On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Sky Ripper, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power.
Okay, true.
Zenobia wasn't just the Emperor's daughter, of course. She'd been Renato's best friend in Sword Fu school. And you're still mad for her, the rabbit reminded him. They'd been close. She'd told him things no one else knew. But she'd never told him who she really was.
She knows all the Emperor's plans, chuckled the master spy. She'll tell the interrogators, all right,
said Lupino. Taking her would change the game, all right. The city was already under Zenobia's control. I had to admire her efficiency. Renato shivered at the thought of Zenobia at the mercy of the interrogators. Could he really turn her over to them? But this was war. It wasn't meant to be pretty. The city was burning, and there was no one to put out the fires. If somehow Zenobia survived her father and inherited his crown, what sort of empire would she be heir to? But he couldn't think about that, could he? Odd that they never locked these things. Why was Lupino urging him to capture Zenobia? Obviously it was a trap. But you never knew how Lupino thought. Sometimes his plans were so convoluted they did the exact opposite to what Lupino wanted. There must be some way to play on that, Renato thought. What's this plan of yours?
Use me as bait.
Said Lupino. And he outlined a slightly complicated plan that involved geese, a net, setting the Farfarer a little bit on fire, Lupino dressing as an old blind toad, and Renardo hiding inside a monstrous watermelon.
What could possibly go wrong? Thought Renardo. Oh, go ahead. I'm sure you know better,
said Lupino. What's behind door number 2? This jewel was more than sparkly. It had arcane power and an engraving to Cindy.
My God. It's full of stars.
You guys ever eat fresh food? 'Cause you don't smell like it.
Is it getting harder or something?
Yeah, just keep trying 3 times. That's many times. You took off the shield breaker, Jim.
Oh.
Renardo slinked through Zenobia's ship, making no sound at all. Where were her guards? Finally, he reached her bedroom. She was curled up on her bed. Oh, he'd forgotten how beautiful she was. How sleek. Oh, soft. He tapped her on the shoulder with his sword. She became smoke. And he noticed he had a blade to his throat. Stay a while. Heard a familiar voice. Did you really think you could capture me? Zenobia said as the ship lifted off. Now I just wanted some privacy. Renato said, did you ever wonder why the Emperor adopted you? And he told her why. His Imperial Majesty wanted to bring the lost gods back. They could make him immortal. But to seal the bargain, he needed a sacrifice. Someone who truly loved him. You're lying. She was furious. You can't prove that. I can. And so, they set sail for the Nexus. The scientists at the observatory have resurrected one of his victims. Well, he's not exactly alive, but it can talk, and it can't lie. You took a big risk. You know, I could just cast a spell to make you tell me where the rebel base is, and you wouldn't consider that cheating? She frowned. Ugh, fine. Let's go get your witness. The rebellion had started after atrocities. She caught up with him. Don't you think I'd know if my father started practicing black magic? Why? Would you want to join in? Oh, no, I'd destroy his books and... all right, I suppose I wouldn't. She stopped, troubled. He ran on. Scientists on this island had been investigating the Emperor's dark rituals on their own. They were neutral in the civil war engulfing the Empire, but they could see that the dark magics the old Toad had loosed were changing the world. Renato hoped he and Zenobia weren't putting them in danger. A very clever engineer named Elon Muskrat had got his start making floating platforms. Not many people knew that. Renato knew more than he ever had. But about what? The observatory was a burning hulk. Dead scientists and black feathers everywhere. The ravens had taken care to burn the reanimated witness to cinders. Zenobia stared around, shocked. The scientists had been neutral. They had no part in the rebellion. "Take me to your council," she said, shaken. "I have things to tell them." It was what Renato had gambled on. The Zenobia would turn against her father once she knew his madness. But the rebel base was secret. Could he really risk taking the Emperor's daughter there? Renato reached Lupino by Farspeaker Toad.
No, we should take her to the base,
Insisted Lupino. "No, I don't trust her. Nobody changes sides that fast," said Renato.
I better go to the base. Let them know you've got her.
Lupino said.
For some reason, Renato wasn't sure that was a good idea.
"Just meet me at the far side of the mountains. There's a shuttle here I can take,"
Always has to be your way, doesn't it?
said Lupino. Zenobia was still shaking as they got out. "I didn't know," she said. "The ravens kept it secret. At first they sacrificed prisoners, then villages near the frontier, and then an orphanage. Kittens and puppies. Sometimes he'd come back to the palace and it was like there were glowing things behind his eyes. And I was so busy. "I'll clear a path for us," Renato told Zenobia, "so the ravens don't see you." This is quite the view, he thought. Zenobia came up as he massaged his sore arm. Her eyes were wet. He's been saying strange things. He asked me to do experiments. And some were wrong. They are banished, right? Said Renato. Gone forever. I mean, he couldn't actually bring the old gods back, could he? She didn't answer him. That frightened him more than anything. Landed a claw on him. Where's a bard when you needed one? Renato wondered if he should have taken Zenobia to the rebel base for real. Maybe she wasn't playing him after all. After the bleak talk about the Emperor's dark secrets, he was regretting his suspicion. They came up on an empty shack. He gestured her in. "Where's the base?" she asked, confused. "I thought we could talk a bit first." "Oh, you think I'm playing you?" She was furious. "I'm betraying my father who picked me out of an alley, and you think I'm playing you?" She lashed out. Her claws sliced fire into his face. Energy boiled in her other paw. But before she could kill him, he slashed his sword into her heart. She staggered. "I could have loved you, you son of a bitch." And then she died. Renato stood there for hours, unable to move. Finally, a ship landed near him. Lapino had brought the Farfarer. On board the Farfarer, Lapino couldn't stop grinning.
I can't believe you actually killed her. Why couldn't I trust her? Renato said. All he could feel was emptiness. You killed the Emperor's daughter. You might want to run for it. If you care whether you live or die, that is. Since Renato didn't, he grabbed the wheel, and he sailed for the Imperial fleet. Renato had never felt worse. Zenobia had listened to him. He had trusted him. She had opened her eyes to her father's evil. Done everything he had hoped for. He had taken her to a dirty shack. Was he so used to lying that he couldn't trust even the girl he had always loved?
Ah, the road less traveled, thought Renato. How intriguing. He could see the rebels reeling back as he plunged into the ranks of the Ravens. He'd had to kill the girl he loved, but he'd also blown the biggest opportunity they could have had, to turn the Emperor's daughter against him. Oh, Renato could only laugh miserably. He was taking crazy chances now, swinging wildly. He expected the Ravens to take him at any moment. They were running in. No one wants to fight a man who doesn't care if he lives. No one wants to fight a hero.
There was a sign. Take the goat across first.
Soon he'd confront the Emperor. Funny that this whole war had come about because the Emperor feared death. And now it was coming for him. There was some sort of lesson there, wasn't there? He was exhausted. Could barely think. He wanted to stop thinking. The rebels were already finished, and he was the last. The Ravens were coming for him personally now, in waves. It didn't matter. He was slick with his own blood. But it didn't matter. In the distance, he could see her, embraced by a halo of light, holding her hand out to him. Had she forgiven him? Would she take him to the halls of the Valiant? Then he felt steel in his belly, and his chest, and his back. And he lay down, and he couldn't see her anymore. He should go back to some of the choices he'd faced before. Maybe there were new paths that had opened up, like those doors he was opening up all over the map that took him to new treasures and around his enemies. But he'd learned another true thing. Zenobia still had feelings for him.
Hey, Rabbit. No, it's just you gotta pick a path that's the true ending of the story.
The book's pages fluttered to the beginning once again. Faster than before? And he fell. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Bernardo knew that using it could go catastrophically wrong. But he was sure he could figure out how to use it safely. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Iblis stone was hidden there. It was a dangerous artifact. It could corrupt its user into a bloodthirsty monster. Maybe he could find a way to use it, to take its power without surrendering to its wickedness. And also, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Of course, Renato had a pretty strong suspicion that Lapino had betrayed the rebellion. And he had a gut feeling that he needed to use that to his advantage. Renato finally realized that Lapino was a traitor to the cause. And maybe Renato could use that somehow. Renato couldn't quite put his paw on when he'd realized Lapino was working for the Empire. He'd never exactly seen Lapino sending coded messages to the palace, but he was sure. The rabbit had been on too many disastrous missions where he was the only survivor, or where he accidentally missed getting on the boat that went down to the abyss in flames. If Renato could prevent Lapino from getting back to the fleet with all the intelligence he'd probably gathered, it might be worth the trip. How had they come to this? They'd been on so many adventures together. Lapino had talked Renato out of prison at least 4 times, and Renato had rescued Lapino from at least 2 lynch mobs.
You shall not pass. Look how Amazon sees stuff.
watching the market store. No. You can't really make a mystery because it's
Yeah, that's true. I saw that on the commercial.
But he always
But
felt that the
Aaliyah
rabbit
will
resented
try to
him.
put those things in her mouth.
Peppino was
When I was
hilarious because he
spraying
was
her
so
hair,
down on himself
she,
and everyone else.
You know,
But behind the
the
laugh,
market is not bad. She needs
wasn't
to
a
know
happy
how to
camper.
draw.
was this
probably need to
payback?
find that read.
Or did the Empire have his little
Yeah,
white
that's it.
tail in a vice?
Leapfrog, that's a good one. I used to have one of those. You use a pen and you just type on the words.
How could you convince a firewall you're its friend?
So we got all the scenes for it to come crystal.
What do you want to get from Chase?
Oh, I already got. Well, Chase wants Beyblade Pokemon card. So,
What do you want?
I don't know.
I already know what I
So,
want. Why are you calling me? I still want to get that for you and I can play. Well, we're not streaming.
Interrupted story time. Caught the lead raven. Now we'll never find out how it ended.
Mario Party 2.
Aww. God's sake, I don't want that prize. Ew, they couldn't blow it for Christmas? Of course not.
Bet you can get it. If you get the digital, yeah, the digital is $29.99.
There was still no sign of
It'll give you
Lapino.
a code.
Not a hair.
Put the code
Not a
in,
pellet.
and it
Was
won't
he
be
hiding in
just
the
like you
cemetery
see how
further
we
down the
download
road?
games on here.
Yeah.
That didn't
It'll
seem
be
like
downloaded on. So as soon as I buy it, you put it
Awesome.
if you want. Straight up.
Ugh. I hate the prize. I just love transparency is low on prize. If not, I won't get it. I'm not gonna get a game that's not on high prize.
Alright. You played the Wind Waker?
Oh.
The one where?
Legend of Zelda, the Wind Waker.
Lapino would betray him. The call was
I don't think
dangerous.
so.
Now, Renata had a fleeting idea that the two ideas went together somehow. And then it was gone again.
Yeah.
Ah, damn ideas. They never stuck around when you needed them.
I have to charge up my Wii controllers.
Bloody and exhausted, Renato finally reached Lapino. The rabbit was practicing shuffling his favorite deck. Now that he knew what the rabbit was, there were a few things about him that Renato didn't find so amusing anymore. You sent me an urgent message saying that you're in danger. Oh, I am. The ravens are coming. Now, I got a clever plan to kidnap Zenobia. Renato wanted to clap shackles on the rabbit and shout, "You're a traitor, and I'm not falling for it." But if there was one thing Renato was sure of, it was that the core of the Sky River was dangerous mostly to its user. If he could put it in the Emperor's hands, old Isengrim III might blow himself and his fleet up with it. Yes, that was it.
Oh man, I don't see that key thing anymore. She actually got that on.
Yeah. I'm trying to find a baby version for her. Yeah, I see she like,
She likes anything that gets in her hands.
but she's like crazy with it. Like, you try to get it from her, she just do it.
Of course, she'll throw it. She won't hang on to it for
That's
long.
why I want one. Maybe leapfrog would be good. Try to find something. How you doing, Rabbit?
A traitor? I'm hurt, said Lupino. Why ever would you say that? We found your code book, said Renato. He hadn't, but he hoped Lupino would blow his cover. You got me, said Lupino. And you know what? I don't regret a thing. It's always about you, isn't it? You're the pretty hero. You get the girl, you get the medal, and what do I get? Rabbit food. I thought you liked rabbit food. Go to hell, said Lupino. And he made a gesture. And 20 ravens came out of nowhere and stabbed Renato to death. He had tried something bold and paid the price for it.
Yep. I know Aaliyah, she will break anything. Okay. The leaf rocaca, it opens up, yes, it has a pencil on the side.
Like that, right? What I just showed you.
Yeah, but it didn't have a handle.
How had they come to this? They'd been on so many adventures together. Lupino had talked Renato out of prison at least 4 times, and Renato had rescued Lupino from at least 2 lynch mobs. Felt that the rabbit resented him. Lupino was hilarious because he was so down on himself and everyone else. But behind the laughs, he wasn't a happy camper. Ooh, was this payback? Or did the Empire have his little white tail in a vice? Ravens were landing everywhere from dropships. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lupino first, the rabbit would give the Empire all the intelligence he'd been stealing from the rebellion, and they'd probably give him a medal. He'd have to be very careful about how he played Lupino. At the slightest hint of danger, the mad rabbit would take off like a rabbit. Bloody and exhausted, Renato finally reached Lupino. The rabbit was practicing shuffling his favorite deck. Now that he knew what the rabbit was, there were a few things about him that Renato didn't find so amusing anymore. You sent me an urgent message saying that you're in danger. Oh, I am. The ravens are coming. Now, I've got a clever plan to kidnap Zenobia. Renato wanted to clap shackles on the rabbit and shout, "You're a traitor, and I'm not falling for it." But if there was one thing Renato was sure of, it was that the core of the Sky River was dangerous mostly to its user. If he could put it in the Emperor's hands, old Lysander III might blow himself and his fleet up with it. Yes, that was it. Renato felt like a real hero, brave and smart. He told the rabbit all about the Sky Ripper's God's Eye core. "I'll go get the core while you attack Zenobia," he told the rabbit. "But wait, I have an even better idea. I'll get the core and you attack Zenobia," said the rabbit. "Right, yeah, that is better," agreed Renato. "Perfect." The traitor would make sure the Emperor got the core. Now Renato just needed the Emperor to use the core. If he could only get something that the Emperor wanted very badly. Zenobia. He could save her and bait the Emperor at the same time. Right. Now, all Renato had to do was fight his way through Zenobia's invading troops, sneak onto her ship and into her bedroom, and kidnap her without any of her dozens of guards alerting her.
Then, he would rely on her love for him to convince her how evil her father was, so she'd run away with him instead of going back to her father, who was going to blow himself up.
It did sound a little risky. But Renato had a feeling it would work out somehow. It always did.
Slippy's hit, he thought. You know what I hate about you guys? Everything. Gogglers. Renato hated gogglers. It was almost impossible to sneak past them. If one didn't spot you, another one would.
Renato was halfway to Zenobia's encampment when Lupino showed up. He was disheveled and distraught.
They jumped us. I barely got away.
Oh, they got the core. Oh, it was all going according to plan, thought Renato. Now he just needed Zenobia on his side. Yes, that was even better. The Iblis Stone. Zenobia could get it. And then the Emperor would have to pursue them. Wait. No. The gem would corrupt anyone. Even her. That's it, he thought. Even Lupino. Even though Lupino was already a traitor. It would turn him against his secret master, the Emperor. he would try to make himself emperor. And the emperor would have to defend himself with the core. Boom. He was a super genius. This is terrible, Bernardo told the rabbit. If only I had gone for the Iblis stone. It's the bearer so much power. We can only hope the Emperor never finds it. What was that? Said Lupino. I think someone's following us. I didn't hear anything. Rabbit ears. You go on ahead. I'll check it out. And with that, Lupino hopped off with the map. Bernardo slinked through Zenobia's ship, making no sound at all. She was curled up on her bed. He'd forgotten how beautiful she was, how sleek, how soft. He tapped her on the shoulder with his sword. She was made of smoke, and he noticed he had a very solid blade to his throat. Did you really think you could capture me?
How long you been on?
Heard a familiar voice. I just wanted to chat, said Renato. Did you ever wonder why the Emperor adopted you? He needs a sacrifice. Someone who truly loves him, to make a bargain with the lost gods. That's a vicious lie. He wants to bring them back. That's crazy. Why would anyone... They could make him immortal. An eater of souls. And with that, her eyes widened. She understood. Renato told her how he had rescued a priest whose order had been massacred. How he had slept in a burnt village. At midnight, the Emperor's victims had come to him in his dreams to tell him of the hideous eldritch rituals they'd been sacrificed in. He could still see those kittens and puppies. Their wide, sad eyes, their moist noses. You can't prove that. I've got a witness at the observatory. He couldn't tell her, not yet, why he was really here. He didn't want her to be anywhere near the fleet when her father blew himself and Lupino up. So he told her about how the Emperor's obscene rituals had raised ancient artifacts out of the land. How he'd followed the appalling trail of the hideous horrors His Majesty had perpetrated for the sake of his own immortality. Any of this ring a bell? He said. He told me it was all lies. You've always known when I was lying. I always hated that about you, said Renato. The rebellion had started after atrocities that the Empire hushed up. Renato had rescued a priest whose order had been massacred for one book. He had slept in a burnt village. Dead kittens and puppies had come to tell him what the Emperor had done to them. Don't you think I'd know if my father started practicing black magic? Why? Would you join in? No. I'd destroy his books and I'd... Oh, God. Okay, you're not completely wrong. They've resurrected one of his victims. Well, look, I mean, look, it's not exactly alive, but it can talk. A true witness, she said.
I don't know. What kind of shower realm is it? Thank you, Jeremiah. Embarrassing this at this point. Thank you.
You don't really have a name. It's just Shadow Realm.
Oh, this really didn't have much in the way of safety features, did it? Oh dear, that wasn't good. The observatory was a burning hulk. Dead scientists and black feathers everywhere. The Ravens had taken special care to burn the reanimated witness to cinders. Zenobia stared at the carnage. He didn't want me to hear the witness, did he? I guess not. What's your plan? She asked. So, Renato explained his brilliant gambit. Sending Lapino to get the Ibla Stone, become super powerful and corrupted, provoke the Emperor into using the core against him, thus blowing up both of them, and hopefully the fleet too. Let me visit your council, she said, shaken. I want to help. Could he really trust her? He'd done it. He'd made Zenobia see how evil her father really was. He wished she didn't feel this urge to join in with about it. After all, he'd taken care of the Emperor, right? Yeah, but she'd always been conscientious like that. She told him she had to go somewhere first. So Renato gave her the location of the secret base, and they agreed to meet in the ruins. He had a very good feeling about this.
Lauren, take that to get out of that rubber thing. Let's play with us.
What had Zenobia gone off to do? What was more important than meeting the rebel council? Had he made a mistake, sending her to the ruins? No. He knew they could trust each other.
Alright,
He could
everybody,
trust her
I'm
because she
gonna end it
never
right
broke
here.
her word. And she could trust him because she could see
Appreciate
right through
everybody
him.
coming out
Well,
and seeing the
she'd probably be
stream.
there well before him. She at least didn't have to fight her way through rainstorms of ravens.
I appreciate everybody coming out and seeing the stream. Thank you. Thanks, Treham and Rabbit. Rabbit, what's that?
You said it.
Sorry. Rabbit. Hi. I'm not sure if I'll be able to finish because I just have to choose right because it's so annoying. But I hope I'm choosing the right path. And we'll see y'all next time. This is Ashley, Vic&Ashley Gaming.